So we're moving to item 4, approval of our minutes from September 9th, 2013.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, minutes are approved. All right, item 5, Peggy, our,
Excuse me, Ms. Hendricks.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I didn't catch who the second was on that motion.
it was Irina.
Irene, thank you very much.
Great, so Peggy, retirement progress reports.
So you have before you a copy of a sample defined benefit and cash balance retirement progress report. I would draw your attention to how interest is credited. If you look at the defined benefit account, it would show on page 4. I think they're all the same. It would show interest credited for the 2012-13 fiscal year. And in my example, it shows $970.69. So that is where we disclose to the members what that account balance is. The focus of this report, however, is not for the members to look at what the value is in their account, because we want them to be focused in on what the value of their ultimate benefit would be. So for those individuals who are considering terminating their teaching careers or moving to another state, that's the amount that would be available from CalSTRS to help fund benefits in another state or purchase service in another state. And so, we do see rollovers for that purpose. The reports, as we indicated last meeting and in the write-up, these reports are available electronically to members in early September following completion of our annual update. We've completed the mailing of all of the paper copies, and the governor has signed AB 989, which gives us the authority to make electronic delivery, the default delivery mechanism, effective for the 13-14 fiscal year for the retirement progress reports that will be available in September of 2014. We're on target with that. We did provide information on all of the defined benefit retirement progress reports, and what you have is a version. We have different versions based on the member's age and different messages that are associated with this, and a different one for inactive members. But we did indicate on page 6 of the example that you have that we were proposing legislation to make this the default mechanism, the default mechanism. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Peggy, I just had a quick question, because in the write-up on this item, you had said that, let me just find it here, that there was an increase of 22% of the opting into the electronic only version.
Correct.
Do you know kind of total percentage-wise how many members with the percent?
No, I don't know the total
I was just
percentage
kind of
of.
curious.
But it's not very high at this
Okay.
point. What we hear from benefits counselors is that many members are not conversant with the contents of their retirement progress report. And in some cases bring a whole stack of them with them to a counseling interview to say, I get these, but I don't know what to do with them. And so, we use it as an education opportunity. We will be providing a rather robust communication strategy for letting members know that their retirement progress reports will be defaulted electronically. Members can request in writing to receive a paper copy. And so we're letting them know that that's the case.
And how are you letting, I mean, what's the communication?
Well, we have the information on the retirement progress reports that they've received now, and in all of our publications and on our website, we're including that information. We're not doing a separate mailing to let them know that because of the cost. And the reason that we're doing this is twofold. One, it reduces our operating costs, but also it significantly contributes to our overall sustainability goals and objectives by not printing the paper. And it saves us, both the printing costs and the postage costs associated with the production of the retirement progress reports.
Any questions from members of the committee? Great. Thanks, Peggy. All right. Next item is Peggy again. Item 6, compensation review unit activities.
So on a regular basis, we want to be bringing forward to you information on the activities undertaken by our compensation review unit. It is a unit that we established in order to look at opportunities for spiking or instances of pension spiking or pension abuse. We are making findings that we're responding to. We're informing members, we're taking actions. We had our first administrative hearing on a compensation review unit case yesterday and the day before. It's too soon to know the outcome of that, obviously. But we are proceeding as usual, as planned, in taking that diligent look at our compensation for those individuals who are at risk for having inappropriate factors included in their retirement calculation. So I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions by the committee member? Dana?
In the introduction, that first pair, under summary, it talks about 23 being completed. Is that out of the 68, the 179, 61? I couldn't think.
Out of the 61 that were other business areas, 23 of those have been completed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, somebody was really wanting information about their retirement benefit, and so we've provided them with the information, case closed. Or they were having a problem with understanding their retirement benefit and believe that there's a problem with their service credit, and we're working through the issues associated with it. So they haven't all been completed because we may not have reached resolution on them all yet.
Okay.
Anytime
It's
that
23
you
out of
have,
the 61
Right.
that went to other
right,
business
anytime that you
areas.
have a hotline
Okay.
operation specifically for a purpose doesn't mean that users of that hotline are always consistent with that intended use. And so we do get other traffic that is not just ignored, but is sent on to other business areas
Great.
for responding back to members.
Thanks, Peggy. I just couldn't figure out, I couldn't get it to jive with the numbers that were in the chart.
They're not. They're the ones that are not relevant
Thank
to
you.
the work of the compensation review unit. There were no spiking
Right.
issues
Right.
for research.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from committee members? Great, thanks, Peggy. All right, Ed, you're still awake?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep you awake. Item 7.
Thank you.
I know, I'm sorry. Report on our 1213 defined contribution activity.
Yeah. This is a report we provide each year about the various activities that CalSTRS undertakes with respect to defined contribution plans, and this is the sort of the third piece of the hybrid that CalSTRS administered. The other two being the defined benefit and defined benefit supplement. There's a variety of programs that CalSTRS runs with respect to defined contribution plans. And one thing that's different about the defined contribution plans relative to the DB program is that these programs are actually available not only to CalSTRS members, but they're also available to CalPERS members. So classified employees can participate in our 403B and 457 plan. So there's essentially 4 different things that we have going on. I'll sort of briefly highlight the report. Then be able to answer the questions. With respect to the biggest part of what we do is Pension 2. And Pension 2 consists of, and this is sort of what the marketplace that exists in the schools is there's essentially 2 kinds of defined contribution plans that are available to school employees. One's a 403B plan, and the other is a 457 plan. And 457 plans are generally available to public employees. 457 is the plan that state employees can participate under Savings Plus. 403B plans are available to educational employees, nonprofit employees, nurses, those kinds of people. So it's a more restrictive plan. 457 plans under the law, let me back up. 403B plans under the law in California have a much more, for lack of a better term, robust marketplace in the sense of the law provides that anyone who is offering a 403B product in California, as long as they register their product with CalSTRS for 403B Compare, that we'll talk about in a few minutes, can offer that plan to a school employee. And so there's around a little over 60 such vendors that have registered, offering hundreds of products. So a school employee will be facing hundreds of possible products to choose from in a 403B. It's a very chaotic situation. California is sort of unusual in having that wide open marketplace. Most states don't have those kinds of rules. In contrast, a 457 plan a district can adopt a specific vendor to be the administrator of that plan. And some of them do, but it's interesting that even though they could say that we're going to have a single vendor, similar to what the state has with Savings Plus, it's actually becoming more common that when school districts adopt a 457 plan, they adopt multiple plans with different providers, and it may be more reflection of the culture that California schools have, is the more the better. So it isn't uncommon to see a school employee dealing with perhaps 60 403B vendor choices and 3 or 4 457 plan choices. So it's a very difficult situation for employees to navigate, and it obviously has an impact on how much Pension 2 as a 403B and 457 plan can penetrate into that marketplace. But we've had success in expanding the program. The assets in the last fiscal year grew by a little over 20%, a little over 10% if you take out the impact of asset growth because of investment returns. So it's continuing to grow. We had an 8% increase in participation in the 403B plan. So it is growing, but it is a small part of the overall marketplace. And quite honestly, there's not a lot of, the vast majority of school employees in California do not participate in a 403B plan, perhaps because it is so confusing for them to navigate that. So we're trying to work through opportunities to get people to understand 403B plans and Pension 2 in particular. One of the things that's unusual with our 457 plan is the 457 plan, in most cases, the investment choices that are available to the school employees are the exact same choices that are available in the 403B plan. The one exception to that is LA Unified, where they made the decision that they wanted to select on their own what those investment choices are. So there is some overlap. There are some choices that they have that we make available to our other 457 schools, but generally speaking, they're the ones that are deciding what ones to offer. And so we've identified sort of what the total assets of those plans are and isolate specifically what LA Unified has. And if you look further on page 43, you can see, we're continuing to see increases in participation for every age group other than those in their 20s. So that's continuing to expand, and the same thing's true in the 457 side. So the program is growing. There's no question about that. But it probably, at least under the current structure, will never be the major player in terms of assets under management. But it is the kind of program that it certainly appears that the CalSTRS members really appreciate having CalSTRS provide that program, because it's a low cost program. It only provides mutual funds, doesn't have surrender fees associated with it, has very transparent fees, and is successful in doing that. Also, just so you know, as you have been told, we are just initiating the process for an RFP to identify the record keeper for the next period of time. So that's something that you'll be seeing at some point next year. The next program is 403B Comply, and what happened was a few years ago, the federal government sort of promulgated new regulations around 403B plans to make the responsibility of the employer much more similar to what employer's responsibility is under a 401k, and that put a significant burden on the employer, who now has to take responsibility of making sure that that requirements under federal law with respect to loans, with respect to contributions, all that they have a responsibility for that. And what every district ended up doing essentially was hiring someone to administer that plan for them. And a number of them came to CalSTRS asking if we could provide that service for them. And as we point out on page 45, there was legislation the board sponsored to secure that authority. We charge a fee to cover the costs. There'll be an item that will be discussed at the board meeting tomorrow around the financing of the program, in terms of the payback on some front-end costs. But it is a program that we have about 10% of the districts are participating in our program to provide a low-cost, transparent compliance and administration. Again, that's something that we contract out the actual service, and we will be initiating an RFP for that one, because that contract is going to be expiring fairly soon as well. The third program is, I made reference to 403B Compare, and that's something that was required under state law to provide a database that we administer that every 403B vendor has to register and provide information with respect to their fees, to the products they offer, to the services they offer, contact information. And we post all that on the website so that employees can go online and see if, for example, they have 60 different choices, they can look at the fees of choice 1 versus choice 2 and make a more informed decision. So that's something that's been out there for almost 10 years now. You can see on page 46 the change in the number of hits. What's interesting about that is we've created a process to try to validate the data more, because the data is put in there by the individual vendors, and we found in prior years that some of the information was incorrect, and we've now got a more rigorous process to ensure the validity of the data. So we get a lot of hits early in the year. We're seeing fewer hits now than we saw in prior year. There's some growth in hits, but you can see a lot more hits in January when we validate the information for the upcoming year. And what's interesting is not all the traffic that we're getting is necessarily school employees. There's probably a lot of financial planners who look at this information for their clients. Probably other vendors look at the information to see what their competitors are charging and making sure it's accurate. And quite honestly, this website gets a lot of play within the community of teachers around the country around the data that's out there. And so probably if we looked in more detail, we'd see a lot of people in other states who look at this information just to looking to find out what products that are registered in California that may also be offered in their state, to try to get some information around that. So we're in the process, we've initiated a process to redesign the website to make it a little more user-friendly, particularly for the vendors to be able to upload the information on an easier basis. And that's something that we'll be doing over the next year or two to have a redesigned website that's easier for everybody to use. And then finally is a information portal website that we created to provide a central location for district administrators and employees to give them all the information they need with respect to their 403B and 457 plans. It provides some education around the basics of these plans, the forms they need around salary reduction agreements and make contributions, their approved vendor list, a savings distribution calendar, and a link to the various resources such as 403B Compare. And basically a person goes into the website, selects their district, and then all the relevant information comes up. With respect to the districts for which we provide compliance districts, all of those districts have full access to the portal. We've had requests from a number of employees of other districts to provide a similar feature for their districts, and unfortunately the districts have referred it to their own compliance administrator, and they've been reluctant to allow that because they want the employees to go to their own website to get that information. So the penetration of the portal is limited to the 165 districts for whom we provide compliance services. But for those, at least, it is a much more robust website. So in summary, we're continuing to work on the programs to try to improve them, to provide marketing for the Pension 2. We go to a lot of conferences and provide information to our members. We've created videos for the programs to make sure that people understand the importance of savings and the value of Pension 2. The program will continue to grow. We're looking at the procedures for each of the programs to make sure that we've got the appropriate internal controls. And as I said, for some of the programs, we have initiated procurement of third-party administrators for the 2 programs. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from committee members? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Maggie.
Maggie Ellis, Chair of CTA's Retirement Committee. First of all, I just want to say that we greatly appreciate all the work that CalSTRS does in the area of the 403B and the Comply and Compare. The end of October, we had a state council meeting in which one of our members brought back a concern about Pension 2, which he was enrolled in, and a change in fees. And I want to thank Ed for the very quick dialogue with me, and his communication to me was very clear. However, I don't think the communication to the members as to why there was a change in fees was clear, because they were quite upset. We had a discussion of this at council, and I said that I would bring it to the board because it's my understanding that the board, those change in fees don't even get brought before the board, or we would have heard them here in open session. So I would just ask the board to take a look at process and make sure that we know you do the least fees possible, the lowest fees for our members, and look out for us. But process is a concern, and we just want to make sure that that's taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Dana, did you want to comment, and then I'll.
Yeah, just to clarify what the issue that she's raising, under the Pension 2 program, the record keeper charges a fee of 25 basis points to cover their record keeping costs, and then we have an additional charge of 8 basis points to cover the costs that we incurred to administer the program in terms of marketing and just having staff support. And we've always made that clear that it's a 33 basis point fee. And those fees, up until now, had only been imposed on those funds that were non-TIA-CREF funds, because TIA-CREF didn't have the capability of their fees are sort of embedded in their products, and they couldn't have a separate fee to that level until recently. So so the result of that is that members who had funds in TIA-CREF funds were not paying their full share of these administrative fees, yet they were receiving services from us and from TIA-CREF. So
So you're saying that the 25 basis points.
and the 8 basis points
And the
were
8
not
basis
being
points
charged
for
to the
CalSTRS.
full degree to those
full 33
to those
wasn't.
right to the whole 33 points. Recently, they finally were able to make that change, and so in the interest of equity, we imposed a fee on all the funds, including TIA-CREF funds. We did communicate to the members. I apologize. I'd have to go back and look to see how good the explanation was, but it was done entirely just to be fair to all participants, that they all be paying the same administrative fee.
And what's I guess the other thing that I think always comes up is the timing of it. Is that something that people found out about?
We gave them,
Like,
I
in a
can't
few
tell you for
weeks,
sure
or-
how much notice we gave them. I'm sure we gave them at least 30 days notice that it was coming, but I could go back and check to see what the lead time was on that communication.
Okay. So it sounds like, given Ms. Ellis's comments, you'll be kind of following up in terms of the communication that happened with those members. And
Yes, we can certainly do, we can certainly, I don't know whether or not we've sent another communication elaborate on, although we can do something to do that. We'll certainly be better about that in the future when there's fee changes, and certainly we can communicate to the board whenever there's a change like that. Certainly when we do whatever the next contract is, I anticipate there will be some change in fees at that point, and we'll make that clear to everybody what that is.
And I know you and I have talked about this individually, but I wondered if it would be helpful. I do know that one of my questions when we talk about the supplemental retirement issues are, what is the role of the board? Because I know there is that, I forget the name of it, the
Investment policies.
investment policy committee.
Right.
So maybe could you speak to that a little bit, like what the board's role is in terms of?
Right, I think it was back in September, yeah, or maybe it was actually in July, that the board delegated authority to staff to administer the programs, other than they would adopt the investment policy statement, which you did do in September. So you've adopted the investment policy statement that sort of guides what the staff does. And we're actually, an investment committee will be providing the first report about investment performance. And so there's that role. And then the other role is approving the contract for the record keeper, where we will identify what the resulting fees would be, both in terms of the administrative fee to the record keeper, as well as the fee that we would be charging.
I just want to make that clear,
Yes.
that we don't actually, the board doesn't make decisions about who that record keeper is. It's
Well, you
this
do by
committee
virtue
that
of
does,
approving
but
the
we
contract.
approve the contract.
Right.
Or not approve the contract.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? I had one, Ed, about the information portal. So, so are you saying that some of the difficulties in terms of getting other districts on board is because of these third-party administrators? I know we use GEM at LACCD and.
Right, but that's our administrator.
okay, so-
So you don't have a
So we
problem.
don't, I know, we're on the portal, I saw that already, but I guess, obviously, in a perfect world, it would be great to have
Yes.
everybody on there. So can you just tell me a little bit more about So you're basically saying it's because they want they want people to come to their website?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
teachers, when they're looking
there's sort
for
of two
tools?
ways of looking at it. I guess the generous approach is they probably have their own website for providing this information, and they say, hey, we've got our own website. Why should we, let them use that one? So there's probably some validity to that, and that's understandable. We were a little bit concerned at times that people didn't want to have CalSTRS, which is a compliance vendor, providing a service to employees who are under a different compliance vendor, and that they felt that it was they were putting themselves at a disadvantage competitively. So we sort of we can't force a district to provide the information we need. So if anybody ever wants to if the district ever decides to allow us to provide that service, we would be more than happy to do it.
I think it's the challenge because I certainly don't want us to kind of cross a line on our end, but I certainly know, and I know the stakeholders in the audience know that there's just so many horror stories around 403B and 457 vehicles, and we all have stories of friends that went to a pizza party and signed up for something 20 years ago and paid surrender fees to try and get out of it or have high fees. And so I think that I think CalSTRS, we have such a great reputation. I think teachers really look to us, for sound, retirement and having a secure retirement. And so I certainly think the more we can be connected to these kinds of tools, because even this week, we had vendors coming into faculty offices this week and people calling me saying, is this supposed to happen? I said, no. I sent an email out to all the faculty. And so it's just kind of a chronic issue, I think, in terms of teachers looking for places they can trust. And I think this is a place and a name that they trust. So as much as we can get districts to connect with that portal would be great.
We would agree.
Any other comments or questions from committee members? Great. Thank you, Ed. All right. And you are on for item 8, the health benefits survey for 2012.
So this is the third. We do these surveys every few years just to try to get updated information about the sort of the state of employee health benefits, particularly for CalSTRS members. And this is a study that we initiated last year. Excuse me. And we're just doing the report now, just to get to you. Where's the? Oh, I need the thing. Thanks. Thank you. So again, what we want to do is determine the scope of health benefits that are available to active employees, to retirees under the age of 66, and retirees who are over the age of 65. Excuse me. Now I'm going to start coughing. And so that the board can get a better sense of what their access is to health benefits through their employers. And then we compared those results to the prior years and nationwide trends to get a sense of sort of where things are headed. So we examined the environment of about 877 employers who represent almost 300,000 employees. 81% of the CalSTRS employers were represented in the study, and 39% of the employers who responded to the survey conducted entirely by CalSTRS in 2009. The reason, as we said in the report, the reason why there's such a big jump is we realize that the Department of Education has much of the data we wanted for the K-12 segment of education. And so rather than sending out a survey that we would get a lower response of, we just utilize the data that the Department of Education had to try to improve the quality of the information for K-12 and County Office of Education. So we only had to do a survey actually of the community colleges. And you can sort of see the response totals there. So this gives you a sense of what the response rate was for the different segments of employers. And, oh, thank you, Brian. Oops. Really? It's just a billable bottle. Anyway, so you can sort of see what the rate is. And as you can see, the community college response rate is obviously lower than it is for the Department of Ed, because the Department of Ed gets a much higher response rate, maybe because they have some significant leverage over the districts to actually provide information. So in terms of the summary of the information that we got, with respect to the active members, and this is, again, consistent with what we've seen in the past, is that nearly all the employers provide some sort of financial support to their active employees, either in terms of direct premium payments, or they make contributions to a cafeteria plan, or they actually put money on the salary schedule for employees to buy health care. Less than 1% of the members who are working for employers that offer absolutely no form of financial support that we could identify. So essentially 99% of employees, certificated employees, are getting some sort of financial support for their health benefits. And this sort of shows you what it is for health benefits in general. For vision and for dental, you can see there's a little bit less financial participation of employers for dental and vision. One of the things that we always talk about is the fact that health benefits coverage is something that's decided at a local level through collective bargaining, and it will obviously vary by employer. Although, as you can see, virtually every employer does provide health benefits to their active employees, but the extent to which they contribute toward the premium will vary from employer to employer. But the majority of the active employees have at least one single coverage medical plan with premiums paid by their employer, and this gives you more information about how that's broken out. So the 56% of the employers provide the full premium coverage of at least one plan. Another 19% provide at least 80% coverage, and so on. And you can sort of see to what extent the employers are, the level of financial participation of employers for their active employees. For people who retire under the age of 66, the number of workers with access to retiree health benefits is low. Generally speaking, it's low. I mean, nationally it's low, and it's declining nationwide. In California, it's actually a little bit different. With respect to early retirees, so meaning those people who are under the age of 65, 69% of the districts in California provide some sort of premium support to those retirees who are under the age of 65, and that's consistent with what we've seen in the past. And again, this gives you some further breakdown of those numbers. For those over the age of 65, though, the employer support for health benefits for those retirees is quite low, and it continues to decline. Only 18% of the employers provide support for benefits of any kind past age 65, representing 39% of the employee population. That level of 39% is quite similar to what we've seen in the past, but over the years as we've done these surveys, we're seeing that number decline more and more. So when we often quote about that CalSTRS members don't have employer supportive health care, that's the number we're referring to. As I said, it's been declining over time, and as we said in the report, California teachers have a much lower level, the retirees at least have a much lower level of employer participation than is true for public employees generally in California. It's much more common at the state level, at other local levels, that their employers provide much more financial participation. In terms of expenditure trends, the average premium cost for a single coverage has increased by 44% for CalSTRS members, while the average level of employer support has only increased by 32%. So employees are paying a greater percentage of their total cost. Overall premiums have increased by almost 170% in the last 10 years, whereas inflation in the state has only increased by a little over 30%. Medicare estimates that there'll be further increases of 60% in healthcare expenditures between now and 2020. So in summary, active employees are well covered. A majority of the retirees under the age of 65 have at least some support. Most retirees over the age of 65 do not receive any employer support, but as you'll recall, under the state law, they have to have, the employer has to make available to them a health care plan for their retirees, but they don't have to pay for any of it. And as we see here, for the most part, the employer doesn't. And post-retirement premium support will vary amongst the employers and the hire date, and is increasing overall. So in terms of the impact of the Affordable Care Act and California educators, we're following with how that's going to affect things, how the employers will react to the changes coming in 2014. Many of the provisions are still being implemented. We're all reading the paper about the struggles that program is having. It's not clear what the impact on healthcare costs will be. We'll probably know over the next few years. And when we do the next survey in 2015, we'll probably have a better sense of what impact that act has had on healthcare for California teachers. And we'll report back to you at that point what the impact has been. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Sure. Dana?
So what, anecdotally, I'm hearing conversations with teachers, active teachers, where districts are trying to have their employees sign on to the Affordable Care Act and kind of get away from providing health care at all. Do you think that it would be worthwhile to take a look at that within our survey next year?
Yeah, we can try to. I think I want to talk to the staff. I mean, I don't, we have to look to see what the data is available without doing a survey. And although we may end up having to do that, we can see what impact it's
Sorry, 'cause we
had.
picked that up from the Department of Ed this time, huh?
Yes, on the K-12 side, we got that information from the Department of Ed. Whether or not it's going to be readily
Put the
discernible.
bug in Michelle's.
Yeah. Michelle, could you get back to us? We'll have to see. The staff have a much better sense of the data to know whether or not how
Right.
discernible that's going to be. But we can certainly identify it if we're seeing a trend, quicker than 3 years from now. We can certainly let you know what the impact has been.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ed.
Yep.
All right, item number 9, Ed and Peggy, your deputy CEO report. It has both of your names on it, so I don't know if both of
That's
you are
okay.
presenting or it's just
I just
Ed.
got one very short thing. I just want to let you know, many of you recall that Julia Duran, who was the director of our Defined Contribution Solution program, left CalSTRS to become head of the San Francisco Deferred Compensation Program. And we're just in the final stages now of the process of hiring a replacement for her. So hopefully we'll have somebody determined sometime later this month to be on board next month. And we'll certainly let you know at the next meeting who that person is.
Sorry to see her go.
And I just have one item, and it's really one that is special to me because it helps ground why we're all here. And I wanted to just highlight individuals who were named as California Teachers of the Year. Announcements were made yesterday. They were reported in local news late yesterday and in today's paper. And I'd like to just publicly acknowledge the work of the 5 individuals as educators who have been identified as Teachers of the Year. Angelo Bracco from Solano Middle School in Vallejo, Michael Hayden from Mira Costa High School in Los Angeles County, Linda Horst of Knoll Ranch Elementary School in Anaheim, and Jessica Pack of James Workman Middle School in Cathedral City. And then special acknowledgement to Timothy Smith of Sacramento area's own Florin High School for his identification as the California Teacher of the Year, who will go on to represent us at the state and national levels. And so I think that it's important that we acknowledge the contributions that all teachers make, but in particular, be grateful for the work of these individuals who've been nominated and selected as California Teachers of the Year.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Peggy. Absolutely. Our congratulations go out to them. That's great. Okay, thank you. Is that the rest of your, okay, great. So item 10 is a review for information requests. Roland?
Sorry about that. Madam Chair, we have 2 information items. One of them is related to item 3 regarding the permissive service credit contribution rate, which was adopted. And that information item is that staff for the April 2014 meeting provide information as to whether members are purchasing service credit based on the implemented interest rates. The second information item is staff is to provide information for the April 2014 meeting and analysis of the permissive service credit program during the November through December 2013 period.
And I'd just add that information request was actually incorporated into the final motion, so we've got you covered.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thanks. Does that capture everything, Terry? Okay, great. Thank you. And then we have the draft agenda for the next committee meeting, which will be in next April. I know.
It does seem long.
It does feel like it is a long time from now. It's 5 months from now. Okay, and then our last item, 11A, is opportunities for statements from the public. So do we have anyone from the public who wants to say anything? All right, well, goodness gracious, what time is it? It's 10 after 4, and so I would,
There ain't no more.
I think we're adjourning the Benefits and Services Committee, so thanks. And what's for tomorrow? 9 o'clock?
Board governance.
Yep, so board governance at 9 a.m. tomorrow, so have a good night, see you guys tomorrow.